What if I told you there's a way to predict with accuracy of over 95% whether a couple will stay together or get divorced? If you knew how to spot hidden patterns that led to separation, you could dramatically reduce your chances of divorce by more than half. It's like the movie Moneyball, but for marriages, using data, science, and a proven system to transform your relationship from the inside out.
We're trying to solve a problem here, Billy.
Not like this, you're not. You're not even looking at the problem. We got to think differently.
So in this video, I'm going to inject proven and strategic actions to banish the forces driving you toward divorce and restore your marriage to a place of harmony and lasting love. We will uncover subtle habits and actions you engage in that have been the slow poison drip of your love. With research that reveals something surprising you've been overlooking that's been silently killing your marriage. You'll learn how to unlock a deeper level of connection with your wife, where she's excited to talk to you nonstop. And talk about you nonstop. I know it's gonna be possible, trust me. How to ignite a side of you that just supercharges your confidence and naturally draws her closer to you. This is something extremely valuable to you and your marriage that you had a long time ago, but you didn't even know it was missing until now. And I should mention that the final step will show you how to completely transform conversations and those tense moments, really opening the door to intimacy and making your marriage stronger than ever before. So let's dive in. First off, let's look at the signs that divorce could be fast approaching. Now, you're just roommates right now, right? With no intimacy, and she pulls away from your advances. You've noticed a lack of respect towards you, or even worse, she's not willing to work on the marriage at all. She gets defensive, shuts down, or even stonewalls you. You've seen her changing, maybe in how she looks, taking better care of herself, planning more girls trips, spending more time alone. This all may seem obvious, but let me share with you Jimmy's story and how it played out with the threat of divorce with him. See, Jimmy thought he was doing everything right at first. One day he booked a weekend getaway to the countryside with his wife. The parents were watching the kids, so the plans were set. It was supposed to be a chance at reconnection, to prove his love and to really get things back on track. They've been drifting apart for years, and Jimmy's been laser focused on his career over the time, putting in long hours, coming home late, and hitting the hay pretty early just to do it again the next day and again the next day. He figured things were fine between them and there was no way she would consider leaving. But on the first day of the trip, out of seemingly nowhere, an argument kicked things off, and it seemed like a small situation about the Airbnb setup. The towels were too scratchy, the lighting was off, it didn't matter. He picked the wrong place. It was too tiny as well, but size doesn't matter. Anyways, it sparked a huge explosion, and suddenly his wife snapped, calling him out for being closed off and just inattentive, not considering her. Jimmy shot back, like, what are you talking about? Like, I chose this place, you could have had your say. And all that argument was the final straw. Her words hit him like a ton of bricks. I'm done. What do you mean you're done? Is what he said. And then she said, I haven't been happy for years and I'm sick and tired of these moments. Look at us. I'm not happy. I know you aren't, but I'm beginning to think that you don't even care about that. And just like that, Jimmy was speechless. His whole world just caved in as reality set in, and he never saw it coming. And that is a common thread with so many of the men I work with. They didn't see it coming, just like Jimmy, but more on him later. Of course, there's all those red flags that I mentioned before, but what about the signs in yourself? You see, most men miss this part, but what's going on inside of you is just as important as the signs in her. Because whether you realize it or not, your subconscious mind's already showing you the truth. And that's our first talking point, which is subconscious indicators. Now, to illustrate this, I'm gonna play two different scenes, each from a different movie, and then ask you a couple questions on it.
Nicole is Henry's primary custodial parent, and to the extent that Charlie would like to exercise his custodial time, he should be making efforts to visit Henry here in California.
Nora, you seem to be ignoring the fact that they lived in New York for 10 years.
My client worked in New York for several years, that's true. But Nicole was born and bred right here in LA.
So now I'm crazy because I don't love you, right? Is that the point?
No, wrong! You're not crazy, and you do love me. That's the point, April.
But I don't. I hate you. You were just some boy who made me laugh at a party once, and now I loathe the sight of you. In fact, if you come any closer, if you touch me or anything, I think I'll scream.
Oh, come on, stop this, April.
Now, looking at these two couples, one handling things calmly and the other one locked in an argument, who do you think stayed together and who got divorced? Well, surprisingly, it was the calmer couple in the end that got the divorce. And I'll tell you why that happened just in a moment. Now, John Gottman, a leading researcher in relationships, set up an experiment in a lab designed to look like a comfy bread and breakfast. He invited couples to stay for the weekend. And during that time, he monitored not just their conversations, but their bodies, their physiological responses. And what he found was astonishing. With over a 90% accuracy, he could predict whether couples would stay together or divorce. 90%, it's insane, right? And here's where it gets interesting. Couples on the verge of divorce often sound calm on the surface, but underneath the calm is a different story. Their bodies are physiologically stressed as if they're in a high-stakes situation, like a predator and a prey circling each other. They are walking on eggshells around each other. Now imagine the wife points out something as small as like a bird outside the window, like a cardinal, let's say, like cardinals. How does the husband respond? Does he get out of his seat to walk over and share in the excitement? Is he engaged and positive, taking a moment to really look and connect with her? Or is he dismissive and annoyed, or just flat out ignores her? Is he on his phone being like, oh yeah, cool, right? Like those little moments. Now, this might seem like a tiny, insignificant moment, but these small interactions are called bids for attention, and they actually are really important. They're like these little mini tests that show how connected a couple really is. The couples who thrive respond positively to these bids of attention. They're not weighed down by unresolved issues or resentment. But for couples on the edge of divorce, even the smallest exchange can feel stressful because there's been tension beneath the surface that's been sitting there building up for years. The key takeaway is that it's not about what you're saying to each other, okay? It's about what's happening underneath. And these little moments can reveal a lot about the health of the relationship. Your emotional and physical reactions matter more than you might realize. And once you're aware of that, you can start to change the trajectory of your marriage. Now, the first way to do this is something most men actually overlook. And I'm not gonna lie, it may be challenging at first, but if you apply this, you'll gain a sense of peace and calm while saying goodbye to anxiety, walking on eggshells around her all the time. This can lead to a stronger connection with her and the freedom to be yourself again. It's a pretty powerful gift. And I call it adaptive surrender. Watch this 30-second clip and then we'll chat.
You win! I'm done. Please, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be God. I want you to decide what's right for me. I surrender to your will.
In that scene, Bruce Almighty, played by Jim Carrey, one of my favorite comedians, is struggling with trying to control everything in his life. He's frustrated, trying to bend the world to his will. But in the end, he surrenders to a higher power and admits he cannot control everything, which finally brings him peace. Whether or not you believe in a higher power, the concept still applies to you and your marriage. I was raised Christian. I may not follow it 100% today per se, but I do believe in the power of surrender, letting go, and forgiveness in what you can't control. That is adaptive surrender. You must stop trying to control your wife in the situation and instead adapt and accept what you cannot change and focus on what you can. Play that back and say it again to yourself. Now, let's say, for example, your wife is upset because she had a rough day at work and she just wants some space to decompress. Now, a man who's holding on and trying to control the situation might feel anxious or rejected, thinking to himself, why doesn't she want to talk to me? Am I the problem? What did I do wrong? So he presses for the conversation, trying to fix her mood or make her feel better right away, hoping for reassurance that everything's gonna be okay. This only makes it worse, doesn't it? She starts to feel smothered and pulls away even more, making the man feel even more anxious. Now, a man who takes a different approach by letting go, he recognizes that her need for space isn't about him. It's not all about you, okay? Instead of pushing, he steps back, gives her the room she needs, maybe goes to the gym, goes makes dinner and gets a special dinner for her to take care of her, right? He focuses on what he can control and he just loves her and gives her what she needs without needing to change her in that present moment. By letting go of the need to fix things, he becomes a source of steady support and allows her to come back when she's ready on her own terms. Now, surrender to the process of letting go of control, knowing that by shifting your focus inward, you unlock new possibilities in your marriage. Think of this adaptive surrender in a relationship like learning how to surf, okay? When you're out in the ocean, you can't control the waves, right? Just like you can't control her emotions and the flow of the feminine energy, right? Good analogy there. Feminine ocean. It can be unpredictable, powerful, always moving, slight and brushing against you. It changes with the winds of her emotions. Now, trying to fight against it will only exhaust you and lead to a wipeout. But if you surrender to the wave's power, paddle at the right moment, and adjust your balance so you can ride the wave smoothly with grace. It's not about mastering the wave. It's about understanding it, feeling its energy, and flowing with it. And in the same way, when you let go of the need to control every aspect of her in the relationship, you create space for trust and connection to flourish within that, okay? That little chamber of space is where trust and connection can grow. And you'll find that her emotions are like the ocean. They're not something to resist, but rather to navigate. And in so doing, you'll bring peace and balance to your marriage, riding the wave together instead of battling against it. Now, there's an exercise that can help you achieve this. It's the Surrender Control Journal. Step number 1, identify what you cannot control. Start by writing down situations in your marriage where you felt frustrated or anxious. Be specific about what you're trying to control, whether it's her behavior, her reactions, or even the outcome of the circumstance. Examples can include, her mood, how much she spends time with you, or even the willingness to discuss certain topics. Step number 2, reflect on what you can control in that scenario. So make a separate list of the things that you can actually control in that situation, which is always your reactions, your thoughts, your emotions, and then your actions. For instance, you can control how you respond to your wife, how you manage your own emotions, and how much effort you put into self-growth. And step number 3 is to release control. Take a deep breath. And for each item that you can't control, say, I release control of this, and blow it out. I know it seems kind of silly maybe if you haven't done breath work, but trust me. Visualize yourself letting go of all that frustration, anxiety, just literally energetically push it out, okay? Number 4, start to focus on yourself. With your can control list, take one thing today that you'll start taking control of and see the immediate shift. This could be proactive listening, staying calm in a tense moment, or just focusing on a new habit of your personal growth, reading a new book, setting up a call down below with our team. I'm just saying. Set an intention for how you'll apply this focus with your next interaction with your wife. And then step number 5 is to have that as a daily practice. Put it in your phone, little reminder, 15 minutes at a certain time when you get home, or in the morning, right before you go to bed, to do this exercise. Check back in 30 days and you will be a new man, a better man. And I'm also very serious about setting the call 13 down below. This is one of many exercises we have to help you regain control of yourself and your marriage. So if you want that, click down below, make sure you're fully committed, and we'll take care of you. Now, as you get more comfortable with letting go of control and focusing on what you can change, there's another powerful step you can take actually. This step ignites a powerful shift in your life and supercharges your confidence. It also naturally draws her into you, wanting her to talk to you more. I call it the complacency disruption. The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence itself, but to act with yesterday's logic. That's by Peter Drucker. Now, I love this quote because it highlights the risk of staying stuck in old paradigm thinkings, old patterns. And right now, change is not just your friend, it is your lifeline. It's the only thing that will keep your marriage from slipping into a place of no return. Because without change, nothing changes, okay? You can't expect different results if everything stays the same. This is complacency disruption. I would argue it is the key to breaking free from the stagnant routines that led to disconnection and resentment and ultimately divorce. You must shake up your life and rediscover your purpose. And when I say that, I mean stepping out of your comfort zone, doing the hard work of really challenging old habits and finding what really drives you as a man. Only then can you create the spark that reignites not just your own sense of fulfillment, but also the attraction and connection in your marriage. A great book that illustrates this point, it is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, this book emphasizes how small, consistent changes can disrupt old, unproductive patterns that lead to personal growth. James Clear talks about making just 1% improvements each day to break free from the stagnation and how that ties into rediscovering your purpose and building confidence. In your marriage, that sense of purpose and masculine edge you had at the beginning is a big part in why she was attracted to you in the first place. You were on your purpose. You had goals in every domain. So what happened? You stopped surrounding yourself with other men who can push you. That's the core reason what happened. Not just at work, but in life. And this is also the core reason why our program succeeds so much, especially more than marriage counseling. I mentioned before why this is so important, but simple perspective shifts is all you need. And it's hard to get those shifts when you don't have other perspectives around you, constantly telling you a different way to see every situation that you go through. Otherwise, you're gonna use this old operating system that got you to where you're at. Do you see how this works? When you surround yourself with other men that are gonna challenge you, that challenge is what iron sharpens iron, okay? Which is why our program is so successful. I'll give an example of this in the book Atomic Habits. James Clear talks about the plateau of latent potential, where it feels like nothing is changing for a while, even when you're making small improvements. Then suddenly, all those little changes add up and you experience a big shift. This is exactly how disrupting complacency in your marriage works. At first, it might feel like you're just not seeing much progress, but those small steps you take each day eventually add up to reignite a new sense of purpose in leadership that create a powerful transformation in yourself, not just in yourself, but in your life and therefore in your relationship with her. And once you started shaking things up internally, there's one crucial skill that will amplify that transformation even further. And it directly involves you and your wife. Now, mastering this will not only transform your conversations and those tense moments, but it can open the door to intimacy, making your marriage stronger than it ever was. I call it Resonant Presence. Now, I'm gonna start this one off by reading a post from one of our guys in the program. He said, "Today was a huge win. My wife asked me if I wanted to come over and talk about the finances and taxes since she started a new job. I asked her if Sunday would work after church and she said possibly. After church, I gave her two options. One, picking me up, and the other was me taking an Uber since I was leaving our van with our 3 kids and my parents and meeting back at our own home. I did not get a response, so I took an Uber. I did not have any expectations for how the conversation would actually go." It sounds like you learned adaptive surrender right there, by the way. When I got home, we sat down to talk and she started to give it to me, yelling and cussing. It was a lot. How many of you can relate to that? Well, listen to this. He said, "I was calm and made space for her. So he responded and not reacted. The old me would have gotten defensive with her when I was talking. I made sure to look deeply in her eyes and be in the present moment. I did not force any conversation on her that she didn't want to talk about. I was there to listen, and her mood changed really fast and was calm because when I did speak, it was also relaxed and calm. Because when you change the way you feel, she changes the way she feels. Today at church was just what I needed. The sermon was for me, and it made me calm knowing God is fighting my battles. I gave it all to him and not worrying about it. I am working on me and my faith. When she is ready to be led by her husband, she will follow." His post continues, and he mentions other things that he was doing. But the key takeaway here is the final principle, something I call resonant presence. When you're talking with your wife and she starts tearing into you, like this man's wife did, or even when she's simply just venting about a rough day, you need to listen and stay quiet, creating a safe space for her emotions to flow through. She doesn't want to be abandoned or left for nothing and being, retreating inward. So when you do anything other than hold space, she feels that. Whether you're like, "Oh, let's fix this problem for her," whether it's like, "Oh no, it's gonna be okay," or whatever it is, she feels everything is wrong unless you are able to hold that space for her. And by the way, I was telling you about Jimmy's story earlier in the video. Well, after that disastrous weekend, he felt completely lost. But eventually, instead of letting it consume him, he decided to take a different approach. He realized with help and support from us and our team, he had been so focused on what was wrong in his marriage that he hadn't paid attention to what was happening inside of himself. So he started to work on himself, shifting his focus from trying to fix his wife to understanding his own triggers and own responses. He began to practice breath work and learned how to stay grounded and present. This allowed him to subconsciously step out of line of fire when his wife was upset, so he wouldn't take her words personally. And instead, he leaned into her emotionally, listened deeply without interrupting or defending himself, no matter how hard it was to bear. He created that safe space for her emotions, a space where she could express herself freely without feeling judged or shut down. And as Jimmy continued to practice this, something incredible happened. His wife, who once seemed completely checked out of the marriage, began to open up again. She started sharing more, feeling more connected to him, and over time, the walls she had built around her heart began to come down. By changing the way he showed up with her in conversations, Jimmy changed the way she felt about him. His ability to respond instead of react created a ripple effect that transformed their marriage. So to wrap this up, remember that the key to preventing divorce and restoring the love in your marriage, it lies in understanding the signs both from you and her. The principles we covered of adaptive surrender, complacency disruption, and resonant presence are the foundation for transforming your relationship from the inside out. If you start applying even just one of these today, I know for sure you'll begin to see a shift in the marriage and the dynamic between you and her. Not just in your marriage, but in how you feel about yourself. I know it's hard right now, but if you stick with this, learn to let go and rebuild that trust and intimacy, you'll love looking back at the man that you've become. A lot of what drives your emotions at the end of the day is your subconscious mind. So if you want a video on how to master your subconscious mind, there's a video right here of how a guy did that in our program, how he saved his marriage. Check out that video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.